Welcome to another away days. I've got to be honest, this has been a tough week for if you are a Newcastle United fan. If you've not seen me on social media, you will know exactly why, because I've literally been hiding under my pillow. I don't know about you, Chris.
I mean, do you know what? Do you know what though, Pete? And I keep saying this, and I know I probably sound like a broken record, but I'm not at that point where I'm like worried too much. I really am not. I mean, I know I said on the show last week, the Burnley game for me was always going to be, just a let's see what happens kind of thing. And okay, we lost, but honestly, I'm actually taking a little bit of positives from it because I looked at our lineup and I thought, right, okay, we're going to be in for a rough night here because I've seen the Burnley lineup and they had a full strength team out. And for us to actually play against a full strength team and actually look like we should have won, I've obviously I didn't get to watch the full match because there wasn't a stream, but I've watched the highlights and obviously I've listened, to what other people have said, and it sounds like we give it a bloody good go. And I think, all right, we lost on pens, but it's one less distraction. So I am taking the positive for now.
Got to be honest, I'm glad somebody is.
Yeah.
However, we will get into that in a second. But as always, with the Premier League fixture coming up at the weekend against Southampton, it would only be fair and only be right to get the opposition's view from their point of view. So it's with huge pleasure that we welcome Mike from Matchday Vlogs, Southampton fan, to the show. Welcome.
Hey guys,
Welcome,
thanks
Mike.
for having me on the show. Much appreciated.
No problem. No problem at all. Thank you for joining us. So, I think I would be more than happy to discuss Southampton and how they've been faring in the build-up and the start to the season. So, just before you talk about how you've got on in the last couple of games so far this season, how did your pre-season go?
In terms of our pre-season, it was pretty mixed. I mean, I think there was some decent results in there, but I think it's always difficult to tell from pre-season because there's a lot of players that are coming back from holidays and a lot of players coming out from international breaks. And I think there weren't many of our players from international breaks, so mostly the likes of Vestergaard who has since moved on anyway. But there's always that amount of disruption that you're never really sure. And I remember a couple of seasons ago we had a great pre-season and then a horrible start to the season. So you never really sort of can take that much from pre-season. So it's nice to get these. Last night's cup game under our belts. I mean, it was against a League Two opposition. So yes, the scoreline was flattering, but I'm not going to take an amazing amount away from that. Although being a Southampton fan who's used to losing by a heavy amount, to win by a heavy amount was magnificent. And I think that's our biggest away win in our entire history. But even still, it was against Newport. No disrespect to them, but it's a League Two side, so what are you going to do? But there we go.
No disrespect to them at all. And just to put some comparisons in there, Newport County in the Carabao Cup last season took us to penalties at their place. So I think if you wait up from,
it's a tough place to go. Obviously.
So you know what? Enjoy that result and the performance and everything that comes with it, because they're not always easy, as we know very well, Chris.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Pete. I mean, Mike, you should have seen us when St. Maximin scored the winner against Oxford. It was like we were playing Barca. We were just thrilled. I mean, it was a great goal, to be fair, but then, as you've just said, we all had to kind of calm down and go, okay, it's Oxford. St. Maximin should be able to just go through the whole team. But yeah, a win's a win, Mike. You should enjoy it.
Exactly. I think I remember there was a famous celebration in the stadium by a Newcastle fan at that game, wasn't there? Caught the headlines.
Yeah, the old helicopter.
That's the one. It's a family show, I'm sure, but I just thought I'd mention it.
Or as they refer to it, the phenicopter. But that was interesting to say the least, especially as it was on BBC at the time. Brilliant. But look, it's going to be a really interesting fixture. Newcastle versus Southampton on Saturday. They normally are, but in my opinion, I think that there's a lot riding on this game for us. I'll talk from a Newcastle fan's point of view. it's just a massive game. You know, losing to West Ham, okay, you know, they nearly got Champions League football last season. We can just say fair enough with that one. But losing to Villa with how many players they had out at the weekend, you know, was a real sort of bitter pill to swallow, particularly with Callum Wilson's chance early on that could have, you know, changed the complexion of the game completely and the mentality of the game. And then what happened in midweek, which I'm sure we'll get onto in a second, you know, we need a win. Like, we're desperate for it. But the players just look shot of any sort of confidence, particularly in the Premier League. What, you know, you touched on it a little bit as well a second ago, Chris. You mentioned about you know, you're not panicking. What are your thoughts going into this weekend?
Mate, my thoughts are exactly the same as yours in terms of this game is huge. I just feel differently about the West Ham and the Villa game, and obviously the Burnley game. For me, the way I'm looking at it, like West Ham, like you rightly say, you know, Champions League push last season, and you're not going to like what I'm going to say. And to be honest, I don't really want to say it, but I look at the Villa game and I think to myself, they made some good additions, you know, as well as having Jack Grealish. They've now sold Jack Grealish and they've made more good additions. So I kind of feel like Villa are, dare I say it, kind of like far and away from us in terms of, I know, I hate saying it, but if you look at the two clubs, Villa this season will be looking at the league and thinking, right, this is a great opportunity for us to get in the top 8, if not higher. We're looking at it and thinking, right, we just need to avoid relegation. And I don't like saying that. And when you compare Villa's best 11 and our best 11, there's probably not that much in it. But Villa have got options off the bench. They've got a manager who has got getting a tune out of the players. And don't forget, Pete, as well, we were away from home. So I know that Villa had a few players missing. Ollie Watkins was a massive player for them last season, as was Bertrand Traore. But I just think, you know, even with the likes of Buendia, you know, they've signed him for 30 plus million and he just slots in. And I looked at the game and I thought, you know what? West Ham at home, that was a big opportunity. Obviously, you know, second half we didn't come out. Villa away. When I was looking at those fixtures at the start, I kind of chalked that one off and was a bit like, okay, if we got a point, I'd be pleased. I mean, a point away from home against anybody is pretty good, but against Villa, but no offense, Mike, we've got to be looking this weekend at getting 3 points. We've got to be, and that's nothing against Southampton fans or yourself, Mike. But for us, you know, you've well, I'm sure you'll touch upon it, but you know, you've lost a couple of big players, and obviously we're at home. The results haven't quite gone the way that you'd want at the start of the season. I'm sure you'd agree. Mm-hmm. So I feel like if there's any game for us to get 3 points, it's the game this weekend. And I'll be honest, if you come away from St James's Park with 3 points, that's when I'll panic. That's when I'll start to worry. But what are you thinking, Mike? How are you feeling about the game?
Yeah, I mean, just touching briefly on your previous game, I also watched that Newcastle Villa game like a jealous ex-girlfriend looking at Danny Ings.
Of course,
unbelievable
mate,
overhead strike. I mean, it was equally painful for us to watch that, to be honest with you. But you know, you touched a bit about us, you know, losing some key players. I mean, we lost the likes of Ryan Bertrand and Yannick Vestergaard, ironically, to Leicester. So, you know, they give us a damaging defeat and then buy our half our defence, which is quite amusing to think about, and then lose the likes of Danny Ings to Villa. And I think a lot of Saints fans were a little bit dismayed by that. They knew Danny was going. Like, no Saints fan, you know, it was a case of Danny was either running out his contract and leaving for a free next summer, or he's going for 20-something million now. So when the news came in that Danny signed, it was like, oh, but when we saw that he signed for Villa, we were like, I thought you said you wanted Champions League football. You know, no disrespect to Villa fans, and oh my goodness, if we have some abuse on our channel from Villa fans thinking we're a much bigger club, much bigger, you know, they've got massive. They get a massive fan base. I get that, you know, a Birmingham club. It's just, you know, what they are and in the history they've got. But it was just a shock for us that he went to, you know, someone who didn't have Champions League football yet. You know, they may well get European football. We shall see. But I'm bickering like a jealous ex-girlfriend now, aren't I? But talking about Southampton, I think you're absolutely right. Looking at this weekend's fixture, it is one of those games where you're thinking both teams will be looking at it thinking we want to win this, because we're kind of we're both in that lower part of the table mix. There's going to be games against Palace, against Brighton, against Burnley, against Newcastle, against all these clubs, which we're thinking these are the games that you definitely want to get at least a point from. It's when you lose these games that you really start to worry, because that's when you get chucked into the mix and you've got to nick something off one of the big guys. So you're absolutely right. Both teams will be looking at this thinking we've got to get something from it. And for us, going to St James's Park is always difficult. I think it's been a while. I haven't looked through the record yet, but I think the last defeat we had up there was absolutely gutting, because we just come off a heavy defeat away at United, thinking, right, let's get reaction here. And then you boys go down to 9 men through injury and having someone sent off, and we still can't get an equalising goal and lose 3-2. So that was, it's always a tough place to go to St James's Park. I think the previous result, we also lost by 2-1, I think it was, where, I think most people thought that we had the majority of the play and should have probably come away with at least something. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough. But I think we've got a full strength squad, so no excuses from us, really.
I just wanted to ask Mike before, because I'm sure Pete's got a few topics for us to discuss, and I noticed we've got a couple of interesting questions in which we want to ask you. But I just wanted to ask you very briefly about Ings, Vestergaard, and Bertrand, because, like you say, the Danny Ings one, probably no surprise to yourself, but it was to me in terms of him going to Villa, like you've said, because to me, I feel like he's maybe undersold himself, but it kind of backs up what I was saying to you before, Pete, about how Villa are an attractive proposition, because he's probably looking and thinking, they brought in so many players, the squad's looking decent. They are a club on the up, sadly, and unfortunately we're not.
They're going, aren't they? They're going places.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of Vestergaard and Bertrand, I know Bertrand has been really good for yourselves the last few seasons, and to be honest, I thought he would have moved on sooner. I thought someone would have come in with a big bid, but in terms, like, the Vestergaard one shocked me. Like, why, and how has that happened? How has that been allowed to just go? Because I thought Vestergaard was fantastic last season.
He was, and he also wasn't. I think, he had a great spell. There was a game against from Chelsea, and then he got injured around the Christmas break. And then when he came back, he just wasn't anywhere near what he was. I mean, you look at the likes of Danny Ings and Yannick Vestergaard, both players with 12 months left on their contracts, and effectively we got 40-something million quid for them. And it's an amazing bit of business when you look at it from that perspective. Danny Ings is always going to be a bit of a risk, because he's 28 years old. He's not old, I'm just thinking it's just realistic in terms of football terms. But arguably this deal is his last big deal. So that again is putting all his bets on Aston Villa getting European football next season. Then that's when I think he'll perceive that move as a success. But, even the likes of Ryan Bertrand, who I'm a massive fan with, he's a huge fan favourite, but he's not as quick as he used to be. He's not as slender as he used to be. No. And in the way that Ralph is playing the football that he does, he's wanting that high press. He wants the fullbacks right up into the penalty areas and rushing right back. And already with the replacements that we got with Romain Peru, which is from the French league, and I'm always a little bit suspicious about any players that come from Ligue 1, because they're always a bit of an unknown. But he's done phenomenally well, and already shown that he's much quicker and much more creative. And I think the problem that Southampton have had is there's only been one Danny Ings and there's only been one Ryan Bertrand, and we've put all our bets on those players. There was no other left back position at Southampton, and now we've got a choice of 2 or 3 in the left back now. So actually, in the departures of those players, we've actually been able to reinvest in a much more diverse squad, because that Danny Ings contract that was on the table was going to put him at 150, 130 something grand a week, which is way above anything that any other Southampton players have got. And the departure of him meant that we could invest in 2 or 3 players, which we're looking at for the future being much more of a dominant threat. So I look at this transfer window and actually think we've done really well, and that's coming from a team that's lost the likes of Danny Ings and Yannick Vestergaard. So, when you think of it in that regard, I think we've come off rosy.
Yeah, definitely. Some great points there. I think there's a few questions in the chat that have popped up. Let's have a look. So we've got Chippers. As a Toon fan, I think after Southampton won 8-0, you think the Saints fan, Mike's happy. His game is at SJP, St James's Park, where the pressure is on us, whereas at St Mary's, the pressure would be on them.
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think, whenever you're playing at an opposition stadium, I think the home fans at St Mary's, when things aren't going well, it can be a pretty awful place to play. But I look at the likes of St James's Park, and I've been there as a neutral, I think years ago, watching a Crystal Palace versus Newcastle game, and there was a amazing free kick that went in the top corner, and the stadium atmosphere there is pretty intense, in my opinion. Probably one of the best in Europe, if I'm being honest. So I would say, I don't know about that. I mean, I think it's always going to be, you're always going to have your fans on your side in the first part of the game. It just depends how the game progresses. If we start well, then who knows? It could be on our side as your home fans start to turn, but I don't necessarily see that one.
Yeah, he's just added in there. Southampton only won 3 games in 21 at St James's Park in the Premier League era. So
it's
tough place to go.
Quite the stuff.
You would say the stats are falling our way, but the confidence certainly is not.
It's because you can't hear the away fans because they're up on the moon, up on the top of the city.
They really are. Whenever
how you get away with that? I have no idea.
Whenever I speak to the away fans, that's the one thing they say. They're up in the gods.
They're on gas and air. Yeah.
Hate it. And rightly so. But I want to get into one or two players with you. So looking at some of your players over the course, obviously over in the last year, there's been certainly a transition with this man, and it's a guy that I know quite well. What are your thoughts about Che Adams and how he sort of transitioned from sort of not just from a non-league into League One? He's gone to the Championship, done well at Birmingham, but then obviously moved to yourselves. How do you think the transition's gone, and has he improved since he's been at the club?
Yeah, I would definitely say. I mean, he was one of those players that we were tracking for ages, and a bit like Adam Armstrong in the sense that he was always linked, and there's a lot of back and forth, and but when we finally got the deal done with Birmingham, and he came to St Mary's, it was a slow start. But it was always close. I mean, I remember one of the early games where he started, it was he hit the post against Sheffield United. He narrowly missed in the following few games, and it just took a while for him to get his first goal. But his first goal was actually against Man City at home, and he scored from the halfway line. So what a way to open your Saints career by doing that and getting us a 1-0 win. And then since from there, he was kind of a player that played off other players. So he worked well with Danny Ings when Danny was playing. Actually, Shea was playing also very well, but he was also helping Danny in those kind of quick transitions and moving the ball quickly. And so he's kind of played off that. And now with Adam Armstrong coming into play, there's talk of those guys really connecting very, very well. So, but I think he's quality. I mean, I think the goal he scored against Sheffield United last season, it was like a volley outside the box, and it was just like one of those real satisfying goals to see go in and get stuck under the net at the back, But I mean, he's clearly got quality. I just think it took him a while to get the confidence there, but he's definitely going to be one to look out for. Certainly with a new strike partner.
Do you think he's a guy that can get you sort of double figures this season?
Possibly. I mean, I think it's more a case of he's great with his assists as well. So he's very much an unselfish player, and certainly one to sort of hold on to the ball and muscle a position for another striker to come in. So he's certainly not a selfish one, but perhaps that's his thing. Maybe he just needs to get that selfish kind of striker nature back that he had at the likes of Birmingham and Sheffield. So.
definitely. And he's still learning his trade. I think he's only 24 years old. I actually know Shay because he was at well, when he was at school, I was sort of his coach and his mentor.
Oh, amazing!
So I know him and still speak to him quite well. And funny enough, when he was younger, when he was in his teenage years, he was a centre midfielder. So he's actually from the age of 16, he's transitioned from a centre midfielder into a striker. So it's not a position, when you first get into football at a young age, you play up front, you score goals. Yeah. That's all you know. He's actually transitioned in his career. So if anything, he's probably still learning his trade, as a striker, being that natural sort of selfishness about him wanting to score goals. But I do think, with time and with trust from the manager, I think he can definitely get there 100%. But no, it was gone.
Oh no, I was just going to say, Pete, it's interesting you're saying that. I didn't know that about him being a midfielder, because one of his strengths is technically he's good, isn't he? Like, he's got technique. And as Mike rightly said, then you saw that in the Man City goal. Like, he's got an eye for goal, but he can also play a bit. Yeah, exactly. So that is interesting what you've just said there, Pete. Yeah, because that kind of marries up. Because sometimes you get these strikers, don't you, who are just, born goal scorers, but technically they're not that great. Like Lukaku, for example. Lukaku's a goal scorer and he's got all the traits of a great striker. But ability-wise, in terms of he always gets criticised for his first touch, doesn't he? But so yeah, that's interesting, Pete. It's probably put him in good stead, that, hasn't it?
Definitely. Funny enough, I'll tell you a story about sort of Shay. He was playing for the school team, and it was not long after he'd finished with Coventry City. So we brought him back into the team because he wasn't playing any football at the time. And he's a centre midfielder. He's clearly the best of everybody. And we said, look, gave him the armband and said, look, let's play. Want you to play. Go out and do your stuff. And I always remember he picked the ball up. The goalkeeper rolled the ball out to him on the edge of the area, of his own area. He's took on 3 players. And within his own half, just played a 60-yard ball into the right winger's feet, and then just thinking, wow, we talk about John Joe Shelby and his ability to pass. He was doing that at 14 years old, and then he won a free kick, probably about 45 yards out from goal, and he's picked it up, and we pulled the centre backs up. We said, go on, get to the far post, Shay, ping it into the back post, and he's just looked at me, looked back, took one step and just pinged it right into the top corner. He just whipped it Beckham-esque into the top corner. And I couldn't even be mad at him because he's just pulled out an absolute worldie. And I'm just standing there like, what do I say? I'm just there clapping. And but he's just got that ability, his technique, his range of passing. He's still got that about him. You talk about the goal that he scored, Mike, his first goal against Man City from long distance. It's because of his technique that he's able to do that. Only really the very technically gifted players are able to strike a ball hard and true and with accuracy from that sort of distance and hit the goal. So he had that in abundance from a very, very young age. It was just really the hope that he was going to be seen and people were going to take a punt on him. And you're right, just to mention before we move on, with Shay, when he was at Ilkeston, when he was picked up non-league, he had 16 teams, 16 clubs, Championship, Premier League, that were scouting him for weeks, months. Newcastle were one of them.
We were looking at him. Yeah, we were looking at him.
We had a scout that tracked him for about 2 months at every single game that he played at. And then by the time that Sheffield United signed him, I always remember him saying, you turn up for a match, bearing in mind it's non-league, and you had literally 20 scouts in a row viewing the game alongside the fans, and you can obviously tell, scouts off by a mile because normally they're wearing the crest of the club that they represent. And he just was like, imagine that at non-league football, you've got Premier League clubs knowing that they're coming to watch you.
Yeah, it's crazy, that, isn't it?
The pressure on him, but he was still banging in the goals. And you know what I love about Shay more than anything is that he's so humble, so well grounded. He's got a fantastic family, another family, great family, and you know, that will stand him in good stead to be a real sort of model professional footballer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, throughout his career, it has done so far, and it will continue to do that. So, you know, I for one hope that he really, really smashes it. Hopefully after Saturday.
Yeah.
But moving on to another player that we're all very aware of. This man,
Right.
Yes.
we know him as Armour, Adam Armstrong. Okay. I've had a little bit of stick here because, you know, from Newcastle fans, because I wasn't too keen on having him back, if I'm honest with you. There was talk because we had the 40% sort of sell on or something around that within,
you got some cash
within his contract.
Spend it
and
wisely.
I wasn't overly keen on having him back. You know, I always think, you know, don't come back. You know, there was a reason why he left. He wouldn't have been the player he was if he'd have stayed with us because we didn't use him well. What are your thoughts? You know, it's still early days. He's not been there long. He's played a couple of games. What are your early thoughts on Adam Armstrong at the club at Southampton?
Yeah, I mean, you're right to say early days, but I think, you know, we famously got clipped up on, I can't remember what it is, the Irish guy, HITC, talking about us and our fan channel, and they were basically saying, why have they bought this guy to replace Danny Ings? He's not going to score until March. So it was so poetic for him to score in his debut.
Great goal.
It was a fantastic goal. I mean, to finish the way he did that, it was just like, oh, okay. You know, it's like, you know, we were thinking, oh, just roll it, you know, just play it safe. But to smash it in the top corner, it was just a kind of, you know, welcome to Southampton. You know, that was absolutely fantastic. Watching him on Sunday against United, he had a chance to get the winner as well. Unfortunately, you know, struck it right at David De Gea. But equally, he put a shift in, and I think that's the thing that we really notice. I mean, he kind of reminds us of the way Danny plays. You know, very quick, possibly a bit quicker than Danny, but, you know, not afraid to drop back, get involved, nick a ball back, you know, and play quite defensively as well. So he's certainly proved that he is, you know, of the quality that we need, and the fact that he's got his goal early will hopefully give him the confidence to go on. But, you know, I just think he's a fantastic addition. But, you know, as a Southampton fan, you're always nervous of the players that you spend 15, 20 million on, because those are the real gambles. You know, sounds crazy, but, you know, just being realistic here, you know, this is a big money signing for a club like Southampton. So for us to spend that amount of money on someone from the Championship is always going to be a bit of a risk, but it appears that risk has come off very well so far. So we shall see.
Definitely, Chris. What are your thoughts on firstly on Armstrong and all the hype and the talk of him potentially coming back to Newcastle before he made the move, but also what you think he's likely to do at Southampton after Saturday, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I was similar to you, Pete. I think we spoke about it, didn't we? That I don't know what it was, but I always felt that with Tony, I felt like we may have made a mistake. Having watched Tony playing for Brentford in the Championship, with Armstrong, obviously his numbers were difficult to ignore, but I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it was I don't know whether it was the way he's built or his stature. He just didn't look. He never looks like a Premier League player to me. But I must admit, I did sit up when I saw that first goal. And as Mike said, you know, against Man United, he could have had the headlines again, couldn't he? So he's one that we're going to keep an eye on. Obviously, we all wish him the very best, don't we? And, you know, we wanted to see him do well. But yeah, I was quite pleased when he went to Southampton, because obviously we knew we had this 40% clause, which I know Dave Harrison's just said we all know where the 40% clause is going. But yeah, I was
Sports Direct bonuses probably.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, that's if they get a bonus.
Yeah, if they're lucky.
Yeah. But yeah, I was pleased when he went to Southampton, because I thought, you know, potentially what would that be on 25 million? Was it like 10 million or something? And I thought, you know, for us, we got a nominal fee off Blackburn for him, and then to get an extra 10 million probably looks like a nice piece of business now. But I wish Armstrong all the best. But similarly, I'm going to be keeping an eye on Tony as well, because we signed Tony quite early on in his career, and obviously Rafa let him go as he did with Armstrong. But I don't know with Tony. Tony hasn't quite had the same start as Armstrong, but I do feel like Tony could be a half decent player. Yeah. So it's definitely one to keep an eye on. Definitely.
Definitely. I think Southampton is the perfect club for Adam Armstrong. We've talked about the manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, and the one thing he does have is trust in his players, and he will get time and gain time, more importantly, to be able to really sort of hone his craft and get used to and accustomed to Premier League football. You know, one of the big reasons why I didn't want Adam Armstrong to come back is because we have the complete opposite to what Southampton have. We don't have time. We don't have time, and we don't have a manager that would trust in him, or probably the players wouldn't trust, because he's not of the level of manager as what Southampton have. And I think, you know, the one thing with Newcastle is our young players are destroyed of confidence, and it, you know, it's still detrimental effect of their career. You know, we look at Matty Longstaff as a clear example of that, as a talented player that burst onto the scene and then was just thrown to the wayside, and hasn't really kicked a ball in the last sort of 18 months on the back of that, which is really, really poor management from the club and the manager. If Matty Longstaff was at Southampton, he'd be a regular in the team, probably alongside Ward-Prowse. And you'd probably have a completely different outlook of that player. So that's why, that was a big reason for me why. But I'm so happy that he's doing well. It was a fantastic finish, the one at Everton. You know, most people would have kept that low. He had the confidence to keep it high, right in the top corner. Great finish. And I do think, I think, there's a potential there for both of your strikers, because they've got a good work ethic together, that they could both potentially get double figures this season. And I'm sure that would be, a great achievement from your perspective as a Southampton fan, Mike.
Yeah, it'd be a welcome sight. I mean, I think Danny Ings got 13 goals in all competition last season, so he wasn't as prolific as he was, the previous season. So I think anything close to double figures will be more than happy. And I think for Adam Armstrong to walk into a club and immediately pick up the number 9 jersey kind of says it all, really, doesn't it? The fact that he can be he's the number 1 striker. That's a heck of a gig, and that's really the club putting full trust in him. So.
Pete, I know you've just touched on Hasenhüttl, and I'm sure Mike knows how we feel about Steve Bruce, but we've got here Mad Magmar, who he mentions a stat earlier. In Ralph Hasenhüttl's last 40 Premier League games in charge, his team have suffered 20 defeats. Do the Saints fans believe he is the right man to take the club forward?
Good question.
That is a very good question. I think, we are very much on the channel Ralph in, and I think I had a bit of a wobble. I was like, Ralph, not sure, towards the end of the season, just because of the amount of L's that we were picking up, and it was things like, you could see a game and the way it was being played, and then there would be a really bizarre substitution. Like, we were 1-0 up against Spurs at White Hart Lane, or whatever they call it now. And Danny got injured. He came off, and instead of replacing a striker for a striker, he took off, he brought on Diallo, which is a kind of our central defensive midfielder, and then moved one of our midfield options out wide and one of the wide option up front, and completely changed the system. And we ended up being on the back foot for the rest of the game and losing it 2-1. And it just, there were a few silly things like that. You're thinking, it's working phenomenally well. Don't change it. Literally, even if Danny goes off and no one comes on right now, that would be better, because everyone knew what they were doing, and it was just a bit of a mess, really. And there were just a few scenarios like that make a few fans think, is Ralph really the man to take it forward? But no one can argue that this is the best football we've seen at St Mary's and on the road easily since Koeman and Pochettino, and I don't think anyone can argue with that. I mean, really, when Mark Hughes was there, it was really just hit and hope. Hope you score more than they do and don't concede, for goodness sake. So it was really kind of old school play, but we've seen some great football. We've seen some horrendous football as well, and not being able to park the bus, not even park a bike. So we've really seen that as well. But I think definitely Ralph in, just purely because of the ethos of looking where the club are financially. He needs to be looking at players that are under the age of 25, under the age of 23, and really develop those players. It's fast-paced kind of football, but I think there's also a little bit of Premier League naivety, where Ralph is sort of taking his time to learn. I used to work for a company. My old boss was German, and he was telling me all about the way Ralph played over in the Bundesliga, and he said that literally he would run rag his players for like 16, 70 minutes, and they would all pick up cramp, and then he'd just hold on to the end just because he was working them so hard. So I was under no illusion when he came to St Mary's what was going to be happening. But yeah, I think and certainly the last two results, that there's a good feeling behind Hassel at the moment. So
yeah, definitely. I was thinking last season, I think it might have been around November time. I think you were top of the league, weren't you?
we were, yeah. It's a 2-0 win against you guys, and I was really worried about that game because Danny was out injured, and we changed to a 5 at the back, and so I was thinking, do you know what? I'd get a point from this, I'd be happy, and we ended up winning 2-0 and going top of the league for a Friday and a Saturday night, which was rather great. It was around that period of the presidential election, and we had all those Stop the Count t-shirts up and all that kind of stuff. So let's end the league now. We'll take the trophy. Thank you very much.
I don't know when that last happened to us, Pete. Probably the 90s.
Well, I tell you what, it was, if I'm right in thinking, 2003.
Was that under Pardew?
No. 2003. We're looking at Sir Bobby Robson. I don't know.
Oh yeah, 2003. Sorry, yeah.
I don't know whether it's the last time we were top of the league, but it's the one I always remember. It was the Arsenal victory at the at Highbury. So they went 1-0 up. Andy O'Brien equalised. We got Bellamy sent off. I think one of their players got sent off. I can't remember who. So we both went down to 10 men. And then it was in the second half. Robert got brought down for a penalty. Robert scored on a counter-attack. And then Robert got brought down, I think, by Sol Campbell. And Shearer scored the penalty. I think we won 3-1 that game. And that put us top of the league for Christmas. And yeah, I always remember that because I always remember thinking, Sir Bobby's going to do this. Like he's going to bring it back north. And typical Newcastle, the defence let us down and it kind of fell away. But I can't remember a time after that where we were top of the league deep into the season. We might have been early on. I think the season we finished 5th. I think we were always around the sort of the top one.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that Pardew season.
That season for long parts. I think they were top for the majority of that season. So yeah, but right, where do you think Southampton will finish this season? So Dave Harrison's asked the question.
Tricky one to ask that in August, isn't it? But I don't know. I don't want to use the word happy, but seasons are always built on expectation. And whether or not you finish above or below that depends on how happy you are for the season. So looking at the way we came out of last season, I'd be happy with where I can see us rather sort of finishing between 13th and 15th. I think that's realistically where we're looking at. But to be honest with you, anyone in the bottom half of the table, in my opinion, has got a danger. And they've also got a possibility. And I think, the likes of yourselves and also Southampton and maybe also Brighton, the way they're playing at the moment, they all have a chance to challenge the top 10, and there's always that kind of the freakish run where something goes right and you go on this mad run and you can sort of pick up, a lot of wins on the bounce. I mean, you guys towards the end of last season, there were talks of relegation, and all of a sudden you had like 3 wins or something like that, and then you're completely out of the conversation, which is much the dismay of the football pundits on the TV because they're like, "Oh, we've got nothing to talk about now." But But yeah, I can see us sort of finishing between 13th and 15th.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. And then that gives you a base to sort of kick on, particularly with bedding into new players. Losing Danny Ings is obviously a big loss. If you were to finish there, that would be a sort of a great position to kind of really sort of build the building blocks to move forward. Right, we're going to get talking about some Newcastle players now. Yano in the chat, not happy.
Yano's not happy, is he? Big up the
He's not
Saints.
happy at all.
He's not, is he?
Some kind of Southampton Saints loving. It's not. I can assure you. We are going to focus on the Newcastle boys. So, Chris, let's start with you. Who do you think? In fact, I'll tell you what. Let's start with Mike, and then we'll go to you, Chris.
Yeah, cool, mate.
Who do you think, Mike, are the ones that are going to stop you from getting 3 points on Saturday? Who are the main guys in our team?
Callum Wilson, St. Maximin.
This won't take him long.
Yeah, those two players. I mean, I think the last game before COVID struck us, and the last game in front of a full capacity crowd was the home game against Newcastle, and there was a mistake from Jan Valery, and St. Maximin ran over him and scored a goal. And it's those kind of catching us on the break sort of players that I'm really looking out for. So yeah, Callum Wilson and St. Maximin are giving me nightmares.
No, I would agree. They are considered the big hitters, and I don't know what you think, Chris. I get really frustrated with Steve Bruce, and I understand to a certain extent why he's done it. So, for example, Callum Wilson wasn't in the squad at all last night against Burnley, and then in addition to that, Ireland St. Maximin comes off the bench at 81 minutes. Bearing in mind, there's no extra time, it just goes straight to penalty. So he has 9 minutes to try and influence the game. Like, players need 9 minutes just to warm up, and get into the game speed. And it frustrates me because, they are our big hitters. They're the guys that make the difference, and they need minutes. Neither of them played a lot of minutes in pre-season. So it really, really frustrates me that they didn't play. And it also frustrates me because they need to be fit, because if they don't play well, we don't play well. Would you agree with that, Chris?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. They kind of, I was going to say they make us tick, but that's probably not the right phrase to use, because if you don't get the ball to them, then we are pretty non-existent, aren't we? Like, you don't look at our midfield, the likes of Sean Longstaff, Jonjo Shelvey, Jeff Hendrick, Isaac Hayden. They're not really going to get you out of trouble very often. It can happen, but it's unlikely. We noticed, didn't we, Pete, from the weekend, that St. Maximin was bang up for it. And when St. Maximin's bang up for it, then we're all up for it. And especially at home. And now we've got the fans back in the stadium. If St. Maximin gives fans a reason to get out of the seats, that kind of sets the tone. And I think it kind of excites the stadium, excites the players. So without Wilson and St. Maximin, we are bang average. And if I'm probably being fair here, we're very lucky to have Wilson and St. Maximin, and without them, I dread to think where we'd be. We were worried about this, Mike, for the transfer window. If Mike Ashley was to sell one of them or both of them, that would literally just be, we would know we'd be in the Championship. Yeah, it's mind blowing, isn't it? It's absolutely mind blowing, and it's sad that we've even come to that point, because we look at Newcastle teams of the past, and you could name 4, 5, 6, 7 players who are in the team, and you go, you could do something, he's decent. And even like the more recent times, like even under Pardew, like I mentioned before, we had Barr, we had Cisse, we had Ben Arthur, we had Cabaye, we had Tiote, who was holding everything up. It was a team where you thought, we've got a few options here, but now it is solely those 2 players. And unfortunately, if those 2 players are either out the side or not up for it, then we are pretty average.
Probably saved you from relegation as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Towards the last season, when they came back from injury, it was suddenly like, turn the lights on and you get your wins and you're out of the equation. So yeah.
I don't know if you saw the game, Mike, but the game that sums it up perfectly for me was the Burnley game. And we were losing 1-0, and they brought St. Maximin and Wilson on. I think it was on the 60th minute. Now, don't get me wrong, Wilson didn't do that much that game, other than his usual running the channels and causing defenders problems and giving them something to think about. But St. Maximin just basically won us that game on his own in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And without that, that was kind of the turning point of our season. And St. Maximin and Wilson had both been out for a pretty long time. And you're quite right. As soon as they come back into the team, all of a sudden, we look half decent. We look like a 9, 10, 12 kind of team. Whereas without them in the team, we look, in the bottom 4, bottom 5, because that's probably where we would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm interested to get your opinion on our Joe Willock. Obviously, from a Newcastle perspective, we were absolutely buzzing when we signed him, and certainly not just when we signed him, we signed him on a permanent transfer, because that was sort of the one that we didn't ever think that we would get on a permanent, because we didn't think we had the money to get it done. But from an outsider's point of view, from a non-Newcastle fan, what was your sort of opinion on Joe Willock? And is he a player that you're worried about? And do you rate him?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's a creative player, and he's able to get goals. So I think anyone on that regard, and I think it kind of raised a few eyebrows. I mean, I think I always hear about Newcastle fans complaining about investment in the squad, but it always feels like the investment that you do make seems to be really expensive. Like, looking at his name escapes me now. Is it Joe Linton?
Joe Linton, yeah.
You spent what, 40-something million?
Supposedly. We're
supposedly.
Not
Okay. But they all seem to be like large investments for not a lot of give. I mean, no disrespect when I say that, but it never feels to be. You always seem to be buying players that have made it somewhere else first, rather than sort of investing in sort of unheard of talent. But that's from a naive outsider perspective here, speaking. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly, Joe Willock would be one that we would look out for, and I think he gives you another option.
Yeah.
He scored his first goal for Newcastle against Southampton in his debut.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Great move by St. Maximin down the left-hand side, slotted it in through the middle on, I think it was on the penalty spot, where he comes and slams it home early doors. And I think that's what, I think Chris was talking about. I think it was that game where we had everyone fit and firing, and then I think we got a couple of injuries in that game to key players, Wilson being one of them, and then it really just set us back. But we're yet to see the best of Joe Willock so far. He's only played 48 minutes of pre-season. He's another one that should have played. He should have started against Burnley. He needs the minutes. But Bruce seems to be ultimately protective of his main players, because he knows if they get injured, they haven't got replacements for them. So he's wrapping them up in cotton wool or bubble wrap at the moment, and it's to the detriment of the squad, of the players, of the fans, because we don't get to see these players playing on a regular basis. If anything, they're overprotected. But I would agree. I would say, Callum Wilson, Alan St. Maximin, and Joe Willock, if they're fit and firing, I think they're a match for most teams in the Premier League. And I think they will certainly cause problems to any back line when they're on their day. But we just need them to be on their day, even more so Saturday. But just before we come to that question, Chris,
I was going to say we've already answered that question. I just wanted to say, that Norman Riley there is saying he rates Hasenhüttl and thinks he's done a great job. And does he still have the majority of the backing of the Saints fans? Norman, you'll have to rewind and get Mike's feelings on that. But yeah, Mike is a firm fan of Hasenhüttl. I can say that, can't I, Mike? You happy with that?
You can, but for the detailed, you got to rewind.
You got to rewind. That's
it. Like and subscribe. Come on, people.
Hasenhüttl firmly in. But thanks for that, Norm. True Faith legend in the chat tonight, along with Charlotte. I've got a guest for us that's going to throw some stats our way about this fixture, and he's going to make a short stop before he has to head off. So welcome in, Keith.
Evening, lads.
Evening.
You won't know Mike, but we've got Statman Keith here. Keith Roll, who is the stat man. If you want to know stats, he is the person to come to. So I'll let you take it away, Keith. Anything that we need to be excited about, or is this, or are there more worries for as Newcastle fans again?
I think I've got some known knowns here. I managed to pull together some seven stats. I've just rushed in tonight just before that, and I just seen your DM there, Pete. Thank you again for inviting me on. I've got some stats here. Newcastle versus Southampton, a fixture I would always dread because of growing up in the early Premier League era, the Matt Le Tissier, the scourge of Newcastle, always home and away goals. Great player, one of my favourite players, I would say, Matt Le Tissier. Favourite player not to sort of play in the Champions League or play for the so-called Big Six. Fantastic player. But he always used to do Newcastle down at Southampton. Dell, didn't he, really? He always, Newcastle would be leading the game and then he'd quickly chip in there with a couple of goals. But overall, Newcastle got a much better record at St James's than away at at St Mary's or the Dell. 14 wins in the Premier League and 3 draws and just the 3 defeats. Southampton have won 1 of the last 6 at St James's. That was, I believe, in January 2015. 2-1 defeat. So a bit worrying that they haven't got a result in a while because of, the way Newcastle are playing. There might be a dual result at St James's. But another thing that I'm interested as well, just looking at it there before, Steve Bruce's managerial record in games versus Southampton. He's managed 16 against Southampton. He's won 7, drawn 2, and lost 7. So it's fairly even Stevens there a little bit. But this one was a surprise because I must admit I have been impressed with Ralph Hassan, who in spells at Southampton. He's managerial record in games against Newcastle. He's managed 5. He's only won 1 of those 5. He's drawn none and he's lost 4 games against Newcastle that he's managed against. Callum Wilson's goal scoring record, I always like to have a look at the players who are going to be a threat for goals for Newcastle. 3 in 9 games, so it's like a 1-in-3 ratio there. So he's got a fair record against Southampton, I would say. And I would say at the minute there's obviously a few players I'm worried about for Southampton. I think Armstrong, obviously, Alan Armstrong's going to be fired up. I've certainly seen that in the first game. I know that you touched on it earlier, Mike, but I think coming back to St James's Park, he's like a lot of players, he's going to be quite fired up to do well against Newcastle in front of fans as well. And again, just like Ward-Prowse, Adams, I think Southampton got some really good players. And one of the things as well I've always liked about Southampton in recent years, players they bring through the youth and the setup. If you think about the players that have been through, young players who came and developed at Southampton, like the likes of Bale over the years and what they've went on to become. Again, compared to Newcastle, where I just tear my hair out, some of the players that Newcastle just let go. I mean, Bobby Clark just recently, not even really given a chance, just gone out the door. And
we're going to get into that one tomorrow on Loaded Mag for sure. But yeah, it's really, really disappointing. But as always, Keith, spot on with the stats. I hope the main one in terms of how many wins we've got at St James's Park continues on Saturday. But I know you've got somewhere you need to be, but I really, really appreciate you coming on. And for the next one, we'll definitely get you on the show again if you're free.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to DM me or anything, anytime I'll come on.
Top man. Cheers for that, Keith.
Lovely seeing you. Take care, guys.
Take care, mate.
Take care, Keith. Ta-da, mate.
Always a pleasure having Keith on. So we're at the point now. We're coming to the end of the show. Predictions time, Mike. So I want to get your predictions on the game Saturday. Are you bang up for it, full of confidence, or are you thinking maybe a point.
I'm kind of mixed on this one. I would say I'm going to predict a 2-1 win to Southampton. I think I'm cautious though, because we just had a big win last night, and the likes of NUFC got a hat trick, and Diallo was on the pitch, and Jan Valery was playing in left back, and all these other players that were being played against the lower league opposition. I'm just a bit worried he might mix up the squad on Saturday. But if he sticks in the same side that got a point against United and could have nicked a 2-1 win there, I can see us getting a 2-1 win at long last at St James's Park.
Interesting. Chris, what's your prediction for Saturday?
Do you know what? I've been thinking about it for most of the show. I mean, I'm a bit worried over Gineppo. I really like Gineppo. I think Adam Armstrong's going to be bang up for it, as we've already discussed, and also Ward-Prowse is also an issue for me, because we do tend to give away silly free kicks, and I know Ward-Prowse is fantastic at free kicks. But I am going to say 1-0 to Newcastle. I think it's going to be scrappy. I think maybe Joe Willock could get on the score sheet, but I think it's going to be a tight game, and I'm just hoping that we get a 1-0 lead and just try and keep hold of it. So I'm going to say 1-0.
Right, I'm going to go 2-1 to Newcastle. I'm going to go the opposite to Mike. I think you're right. I think we all said it was going to be a tight game, but I think because we have to win, and Bruce, in order to stop the fans getting on his back, he's going to need those players to perform. So they're my predictions. Chris and Mike, I know, Mike, you have to shoot right now, but absolute pleasure to have you on the show this evening.
Thank you, Mike.
Cheers, guys.
And also, later on in the return fixture, we'll definitely get you back on again. There's so much more to discuss. We were going to discuss the ownerships tonight, but we'll save that for next time. And hopefully, we'll both be in a better position to have a little bit of a more comfortable chat, shall we say?
Let's hope so.
Later on. Definitely. But we'll take you out. We'll take you out the studio now, Mike. But thank you very much.
Cheers,
Absolute
boys.
pleasure. You take care.
Cheers, man. See you soon. Bye.
Take care, mate.
Pleasure
Top fella.
talking, Mike. Yeah,
fella.
really top guy, and really appreciate it. I know he got a busy schedule, but took the time out to come on the show tonight and give us our Southampton perspective. So yeah, Mike thinks it's going to be a 2-1 win to Southampton. I think we're both going for wins. Are you confident?
Mate, do you know what? I don't think I've got any other choice, Pete. I think I've got to be confident. You can't go in to Southampton at home, who've just lost Danny Ings, Bertrand, Vestergaard. We can't go into that game and not feel confident over the win, because, as I say, over the past 2 games, I've seen bits where I thought, you know what, we look all right here. And I don't think over the 90 minutes, we've not got the result we've been after. That first half against West Ham, I thought we were fine. Like, I'm not saying we played the best I've ever seen us play, but I thought we were pretty decent. For spells during the Villa game, I thought we were all right. I'm comparing it to last season, and that horrible run we went on, and we just didn't look like we were doing the match day lives, weren't we? And it was just appalling. I'm comparing it to that, and I'm thinking, do you know what? It wasn't too bad. Willock's not obviously match fit, like you discussed earlier, Pete. St. Maximin looks bang up for it. The fans are back in the stadium. Wilson's, he's off the mark already. And I don't know. It was an interesting, actually. I've just seen a comment flash up there from Davin Woodmus, who said he was at the match. And do you know what, Davin? It's funny you say that, because me and Pete were saying, weren't we, not so long ago, Pete, that we would have started Fraser. I know he's been training for that new number 8 position, hasn't he?
Chris, it frustrates the hell out of me. You're right. We talked about it.
Yeah,
he's played the whole of pre-season.
Yeah, and he was good. And
he's played well. He's got assists. He's created problems. He's adjusting to that midfield role, and he's actually played all right. In considering that, Longstaff's had a bit of a shocker. Apparently he played okay yesterday when he came. Well, I think when he came on, well, he started. I think, but
yeah, he started
the game. But that's one in the last 6 or 7. And
exactly.
what more does Fraser have to do to get in the team? He can take a set piece. He can score a goal because he's got a decent shot on him. He's creative because he can find a player with a pass. He has everything we need.
He's got pace. Yeah,
he's got pace. He's got pace and trickery. And I'm thinking, this player was courted by the likes of Spurs and Arsenal and quoted at 30 odd million pound from Bournemouth, and we got it for nothing. And now we're not even using him. We could argue all last season that he was unfit and getting injuries. He's fit and firing. He's ready to play. Give him the opportunity to show him what he can do.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really sort of disappointed of how, Bruce used him so far this season. And that's on the manager. That's not on the player. But yeah, it's such a frustrating situation at the moment. But let's see what Bruce is going to do. I really do hope he plays.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was talking to my friend earlier. Obviously, we were talking about the fantasy footy. I haven't looked where you are in the Loads of Mag League, actually, Pete. I'll have to check that later. But
down.
Yeah, I'm pretty down as well.
The
I went and see my mate before, and we were talking because he said to me at the start of the season, he was like, Chris, I told him I was going to put Gomez in. He was like, Chris, don't, because he's a Liverpool fan. He went, don't. He went, Matip will start. I'd go with, if you're going to put a Liverpool defender in, you don't want Van Dijk because he's too expensive. He said, put Matip in. So anyway, as I say, when I saw him earlier, he was like, I was going to come to you for Newcastle advice. He went, but I can see you've got Ryan Fraser in your team. So he said, maybe I shouldn't. And I was like, mate, I said, he's been playing well pre-season. And, he looks up for it. And we all know he's a good player. I mean, we were talking about him a couple of months ago, obviously during pre-season, and I was saying to him, hey, Fraser's doing all right. Fraser's looking good. He's a good player. He was doing well at Bournemouth. I think you brought up the stat, Pete, not so long ago about Fraser having like one of the best records for assists in like Europe, and you're thinking, why? How can he not get in this team? And then we're watching performances and we're going, yeah, that's poor. Should be doing better there. Should be doing, Fraser at the moment, if he can't get in this side right now, and some players aren't performing, when the hell's he going to get in the team?
It was the season before COVID, so I think he had. I'm not sure if he had 16 or 17 assists for the season. Up there, I think only Eden Hazard had more. In that season, and that's why they were quoting him at the best part of 30 million, because he was flying high. Obviously, the season into COVID, there was a lot of distractions about his contract and, is he going to stay? Is he going to leave? All that stuff. So that did affect him, certainly in the back part of the season. He then didn't play or kick a ball for 6 months, signed for us without a pre-season, got loads of niggly injuries. He's now had a pre-season. He went to the Euros, didn't really play, but got a good pre-season under his belt. He's fit and firing. He's ready to show what he's about. Now we're not even giving him an opportunity. And
yeah,
it's just
play him.
He needs a run of 5 games. The manager needs to say to him, right, the next 5 games you're playing.
Yeah.
Don't care about the opposition. You're in the team. Show me what you're about. And in your mind, you'll know, if you play football, Chris, you'll know in your mind, if you know that you're playing and you know you're in the team, you can mentally prepare for that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It changes your opinion. If you're constantly worried about, if I make this pass wrong, then I might be on the bench the next week. Or if you think, right, I'm going to get this assist or score this goal, but I'll still be on the bench next week. Your mindset of the game is just not right. But
yeah.
I don't know.
Absolutely right, mate. And I think he just needs that little bit of confidence, doesn't he? But again, you wonder whether there is an issue with him and Bruce, because his comments after when he went away with Scotland, I think it was for the qualifiers or friendlies, and when he went away, it was before the Euros, and those comments he made about Steve Clarke and saying, like, I forget, I can't remember them word for word, but he was basically saying Steve Clarke's a good manager. Steve Clarke trusts me. I like working for Steve Clarke, which is basically him going to Bruce.
Yeah.
So maybe they've made it up, but like you say, if he's not going to be involved in Bruce's 11, why play him every bloody friendly?
Yeah.
Why? Just leave him out the squad.
Or better yet, try and get some finances for him and move him on.
Yeah, exactly. If it's not working out,
you can get some money for him. But
I love Yano's comment there, by the way. That's the positivity. I'm having that.
I'm not a Bruce fan, but we've been on the wrong end of some shocking ref and VAR decisions. you know what? You've got a point. You know, we talked about you know, the Aston Villa game. You know, you could talk about the West Ham game. It wasn't a penalty. You know, Murphy did not concede a penalty. It wasn't, in my opinion. Like, I'm not having that. He got
Keep watching it. It still doesn't. You still don't change your mind, do you?
The fact that the referee didn't look at that was a disgrace.
Yeah.
I have to say, and I've mentioned it before, our penalty, so the one that Lascelles gave away, I do think that was a penalty.
I agree, Pete. We spoke about it, mate, and I know a lot of people were going, "Oh, it wasn't a penalty." Yeah, I keep watching it. I watched it about 4 or 5 times last night, and it's a penalty. Yeah. His arm is up. It shouldn't be up.
His arm was up. He's given it the excuse that his leg was up, and naturally your arm's in a different position. I'm sorry, if your leg is up that high at that point, you know, when the ball is headed towards him, then you're at fault there, because your body position should not be allowing you to put your leg at that high. So for me, he's at fault, and it's a penalty. There's no arguments about that. However,
the ball's heading towards the goal, Pete. The ball's heading towards the goal, and his arms in the air. I mean, look back at the. I know you're going to make another point, mate, but look back at the Champions League game, Champions League final, Liverpool Tottenham, and Moussa Sissoko turns round and his arm's in the air. It hits his arm. The ball's heading towards the box. He's got to give it. Yeah. Even though, I mean, that was even less of a pen. But this is 8-9 yards out. The ball is going towards the goal, and his arm's there. Yeah. What?
When contact's made, Lascelles is 4 yards from the goal line. So it's a clear goal scoring opportunity. I've got no qualms about that. But I tell you what, that Callum Wilson incident is the biggest disgrace you'll probably find from a referee this season. Yeah, there is no way, absolutely no way, that shouldn't have been given anything other than a clear penalty and at least a yellow card for Martinez. And the reason why I say that, and I've mentioned it before, is that I wouldn't have minded if Callum Wilson had gone through on goal, slotted it home, and then the referee pulls it back because the linesman put his flag up. Fine. They've made the decision. They've waited until the ball's in the net to put the flag up. Fine. Lots of linesmen do that. The linesman didn't flag offside. He never said it was offside because in his mind, it wasn't offside. So that, for me, becomes a non-factor. If it had put it up for a flag, the referee checks with VAR to see if it was offside. Decision made, fair enough. The linesman says it's onside. The game continues. He gets clattered in the box. He gets assaulted in the box by the goalkeeper.
It was assault.
It was an assault. He gets a clear penalty. Should have been at least a yellow card, right? You then only review that situation because it's not a clear and obvious mistake.
No.
At that point, there is no point looking back to something, right, that still isn't now clear and obvious. There's got all this talk about Callum Wilson wearing clown boots and flippers and all sorts because the picture's distorted and you can't actually tell whether he's actually offside or not because it's so distorted that you can't see for sure. People are arguing about the angles of the lines. When you're in that situation, that's not clear and obvious. And the fact that the linesman didn't put the flag up means that that's a non-factor. It should be based on the incident that happens, which is where Martinez clears out Callum Wilson. It's a clear penalty. We should have a penalty.
What? I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, people. Did you see was it? Oh, I hope I get this right. Was it the Salah goal or the Fernandez goal? And they showed the lines. I think it was Fernandez. And Fernandez looks offside. To the naked eye, he looks offside. When you draw the line, he looks offside. But the goal was given.
That was the one against Leeds, first game of the season. Because I watched that game, and I thought on first view and then the replay, he looked offside.
He looked offside. Under these new rules, as in it's stupid because it's like his arm or it's a part of his body that's offside. But under these new rules, where they draw the line and they go, if it's that much, he's off. He looked offside. Even in normal play, you could see he looked off. And then they drew the line. And he's still over the line, but they're like, yeah, goal.
But the goal had already, by the time we saw the line, and by the time we saw it all, then the game had already restarted. So they'd already kicked off. The goal had already been given at that point. So at that point, the lines can be drawn to however you want it to be viewed.
Mm.
You watch last season and the season before, when they were doing the VAR, how long does it take them to get the right line? Because they're constantly chopping and changing it to make it look a certain way.
Yeah.
Who's to say
Because
that
if you do the line like that or like that, it's going to be different, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. So who's to say that the line that they're drawing is right?
Mm.
Now they've opened up the lines to make it bigger. In that situation, you're looking at the defender and you're looking at Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson should be getting all the grace possible.
Yeah.
In that situation, it should be benefiting the attacker. That did not benefit the attacker. They look evil, and I just think it's a really, really poor decision. A poor decision. You know, there was a lot of talk about refs making good decisions and doing things right. For me, they've made some massive mistakes as well, and it just brings about all the controversy to VAR right to the forefront all over again. Definitely.
Yano's asking us there, Peter, who are we taking out to put Fraser in? Miggy?
Yeah, 100%.
Feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know what? You know, we'll probably get into this a little bit on Loaded Mag tomorrow, but you know, I think Miggy needs a little bit of time out the team. I'm not saying he needs to go weeks and weeks and weeks without playing, but for me, it's time to play Fraser. I think Fraser needs to come into the team. Certainly for the next 2 or 3 games. We've got Southampton at home, Man United away, and then if I'm right in thinking, Leeds at home on the Friday night. They're our next 3 games. For me, I think Fraser needs to be given at least the next 2 games to show what he's about. Maybe the next 3, because obviously Man U were expected to lose that one. Probably going to have a lot of the ball. So it's at least the next 3 games, the 2 home games against teams that we can get something from to show what he's about. Miggy had, he's had a tough end to the season. He's had Copa America, and then had his injury, straight back into pre-season, straight into the season. He's not really had a proper rest. I think he needs that little bit of time to take the pressure off him. He's in midfield. You know, I'll get into it, tomorrow, but I do feel sorry for Miggy. I do feel really, really sorry for Miggy.
I do.
I think he needs time out of the team.
I agree with you, Pete. I think he needs time out the team. I think he is the perfect impact sub in terms of he's going to come on and he's going to run around like a lunatic. And sometimes that's what you need, especially when you're playing against tired legs. Miggy always maintains his his fitness throughout the match, because to be fair, you'll see him sprinting on the 89th minute, even if he started. But like you say, maybe he just needs to take a little back seat, rest up, and come back refreshed. And again, like I say, the best possible sub to bring on would be Miggy, because he will stretch the lines. He will make the opposition work hard, especially as he comes on fresh.
Definitely. Did you guys see the elbow on Miggy against? I didn't actually. I certainly don't remember it. Did you see that, Chris?
I did, but and there was a replay on it. I must admit, Yano, I'd have to watch it again. I remember seeing it and thinking, oh, that looked a bit naughty, but then I watched it again, and for some reason, and correct me if I'm wrong, because when I come to watch it after this show, I may feel differently about it, but I don't recall feeling all that strongly over it. So I would have to see it again, but I do recall the incident.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I didn't
remember it.
No.
Right.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see it again, though. I mean, if that could be another VAR situation, so that'd be 2 in the same match.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me with how they officiated the game last Saturday. I just wanted to go back to this point. Darren Woodmass, they put Mankilio and Fraser could possibly come in off last night's performances. Lewis did improve, but definitely lacking confidence. The reason why I wanted to come back to that comment is Mankilio. I heard a lot of positive things about how he played on that right-hand side. There was talk that he played really, really well. He needs to play more minutes for me. Whether I start him on Saturday or not, I don't know, because I think, attacking wise at home, I would probably go with Murphy from an attacking intent to try and get at them and try and get goals. But I do think Manquillo should be coming off the bench to really try and shore us up. He's more defensive minded as a right wing back. He can play right wing back, and he's played there well for us previously, so he can do a job there. But I think he needs to be getting more minutes. And there's clearly something going on with him and Bruce. I'm led to believe it's about the language difficulties and the fact that he's not, in all the years that he's been in England, he still hasn't learned English yet. But for me, that's not a reason to kind of alienate a player from the squad and not give him minutes. He's a talented player who's really found his feet at Newcastle. He's gone from Atletico Madrid to Marseille, to Liverpool, to Sunderland, to us, and he's really where he's settled with us. He's played his best football for us during his career, and I think he needs more time. Lewis had a good second half. I don't think he played well in the first half. I'm led to believe. But second half, he was really attacking down that left-hand side and causing problems. And again, he's another guy that can really impact the game. When someone like Matt Ritchie, because he didn't play, so he's going to start Saturday. He didn't play yesterday. When he starts to tire, like we talked about before, at the sort of the 55, 60, 65 minutes, Lewis, who's a supreme athlete, to come on and keep that running, that momentum, that work rate down that left-hand side could be the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's arguably a better defender. So we've got options there. But it goes back to the point is it's all about how the manager uses them. And this is why I made my point on Twitter last night. We can argue about Mike Ashley, in my opinion. And Mike Ashley is ultimately the major problem at this club because he's the owner. But the immediate problem, in my opinion, is Steve Bruce, because even though all of this crap that's going on around us is a nightmare and it's horrible for us, he's the one that still gets the opportunity to still put things right on the pitch, and he's still making the same mistakes time and time again. He is the immediate problem. I put any other manager, and I don't know about you, Chris, I put any other manager out there. You've got a Wilder, you've got a Howe. There are other managers out there for sure that could come in and do a job, better than him.
Yeah.
Those two managers alone are better than him. Now, there's an argument of whether people would want those managers in the club, and it's all about opinions. But I know for a fact those two managers would get this squad of players playing better football.
Yeah. No, I can't disagree with that, Pete. I think from my point of view, it's probably more being scared than anything else, because if Steve Bruce got sacked tomorrow and we got a new manager, I think I'd be a little bit worried that the takeover wasn't happening. So the longer that Bruce is here, and I know that sounds bizarre, the longer that Bruce is here, the more I think great things are bubbling away. Things are getting on. We're just putting up with him for now. And sometimes they say, don't they, the grass isn't always greener, and better the devil you know. So part of me feels like Bruce is here to kind of steady the ship. But I totally take your point in that I could probably name off the top of my head now 10, 20 managers who I would rather than Steve Bruce. The thing that baffles me the most is how I think there's a big difference between backing Bruce and putting up with Bruce. And for me, it does surprise me even now that some of the fan base, getting behind Bruce, like, the whole singing and give us a wave and all stuff like that. I just can't. I'm hoping it's ironic. I'm hoping that's what it is, as a bit of a laugh. But I just think, I don't think he sees it like that. I think he loves it because he thinks great. I have got some supporters out there. But, I will always give Bruce credit when he does well. And, if he does something right, fair play. But equally, if he does something bad, I'll call him out on it. And, unfortunately, the bad outweighs the good. And it always will with Steve Bruce. And that is the problem. People who criticize and say, oh, why are you giving him credit? He's this, he's that, he's that. No, it's about saying, fair play, well done. But if the next week he's awful and he makes wrong decisions, I'll call him out then as well.
Yeah.
But the backing of him in terms of, you know, people saying, well, people singing his name and getting behind him. I'm all for getting behind the lads, getting behind the players, because they're in this position and they're the ones who are going to get us out of it. The frustration with me with Bruce Pete, as I'm sure it is with you, is that he got out of it last season thanks to Graham Jones and thanks to St. Maximin and thanks to Callum Wilson. That's how he got out of it. And my worry is this season that if Graham Jones, St. Maximin, Wilson, if they don't turn it on and they don't get him out of it, he's down an alley and he's got nowhere to turn, because he hasn't got the skills and the capability and the tools to be able to drag everyone out and sort it out himself. Like, I gave him credit last season with Matt Ritchie, you know, when he obviously kissed and made up with Matt Ritchie, because he knew, or he was told, Matt Ritchie needs to be in this 11. So, you know, he's going to have to be in it. And Matt Ritchie coming back in made a massive difference. It was that passion and that drive and that leadership. But I just don't think he makes the big calls. I really don't. I think he bottles everything.
He does, and I think, you know, we'll talk about his influence on the game yesterday, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, I'm sure, on Loaded Mag as well. And, you know, his influence was very, very minimal in that game, and I think that says a lot. I think, you know, he's. I agree with you 100%. Your thoughts on Steve Bruce, and as Yano said, it's a great shout. Is very much the same. You know, I will give him credit when he does things well.
Yeah.
I'll also hammer him, but like you said, there is far more negatives that outweigh any positives that he does as manager. And it's the little. It's not just the little things, like you said. It's the big calls. It's the big decisions. Whether it's starting lineups, whether it's making big decisions on who he's playing, it's making big decisions on subs. You know, keeping Joe Linton on yesterday, and taking Dwight Gale off, who was arguably playing his best game he's played for quite a while for Newcastle, without scoring, but still playing well. And, you know, it's stuff like that. You know, Dwight Gale can also take a penalty, so it's not a major issue. But he could have potentially still nicked us a goal. That could have won us the tie. It's things like that that really frustrate, and it baffles fans. We look at each other sometimes when we look at the starting lineups on our chat, and we're like, "Is it really just pick that team?"
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's mad. So, like, sometimes he just can't. He can't defend. You can't defend him, even if you want to. You just can't, because the decisions he makes are so bad. Anthony's made a point. Not a Bruce fan by any stretch, but with Jones on the sideline, we have been more on front foot this season, but have not taken our chances that we've created yet. And you know what? It's a fair point. At times we have been a little bit more front foot. I would probably argue, the second half against West Ham we weren't. After the second half against Villa we weren't. We were for the majority of the 90 minutes against Burnley, but we just couldn't put our chances away. It's okay being front foot, but if you're not taking your chances, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to put your chances away, because you've got to make that pressure count. Against West Ham, we put enough pressure on to go 2-1 up at half time. We got in front, we gave ourselves a lifeline, and within 11 minutes, we threw it all away. And then we just couldn't come back from it against West Ham. We did the hard work. We were probably arguably the better team in the first half against Villa. But then we switch off for 30 seconds and bang, right before half time, not even an opportunity to react. We're 1-0 down. We're already chasing the game. We don't give ourselves the opportunity that when we're playing well, we capitalise on it. The Callum Wilson chance against Villa, the hatful of chances we missed in the first half, the even bigger chances that we missed in the second half that could have killed the game. Hendricks on 2 yards out. It's Gale hits the bar. Joe Linton miskicks the ball just before Hendricks hits it. It's things like that. It's all well and good, not pointing the finger at Bruce, but, ultimately the players at times that he's putting on the pitch are just not good enough.
No. And ultimately, team selection, no matter what anyone says, I do believe team selection probably is down to Bruce. I do believe he probably has the final say on it. I think Graham Jones has a lot to say on the tactics and how the team's set up and the shape and the formation. But the team selection, I would be very surprised if it wasn't Steve Bruce that was picking that team.
I would agree with you. I do think that he picks the team. I'm honest that I think it's reflected in our frustrations when we read the team sheet out. Because I think, you know, if it was a Graham Jones who was picking the team or somebody else, I don't think it would be that particular team. So I do think it is reflected in what we see and how frustrated we are.
I hope Anthony's right there. He's saying there, Pete, I think the Brucey give us a wave chance for tongue-in-cheek from the Gallagher corner, as anyone who has stood there back in the Terracing days will know the Gallagher's humour is legendary. And yeah, I hope that is it, Anthony. I hope it is that.
You know what? It all started from the Burton game, and I was there.
Yeah, you were there, the friendly, weren't you?
We were 2-0 up, cruising. I'll tell you how it all started. So the give us a wave chance. It started against Burton, and it was it was Burton. It was Burton away. We were badgering Freddie Woodman, who was in front of us. We were behind his goal in the first half. We hammered him for 25 minutes. Woodman, give us a wave. Freddie, give us a wave. Booing him every time he didn't. Booing him. We went 1-0 up. It got to about 25 minutes in, and we'd badgered him that much. Whenever the ball was up the other end of the pitch, we'd be going mad at him. When he refused, we booed him. We started singing Dubravka chants in frustration. We started making Darlow chants in frustration. He eventually gave a quick look to the dugout, who were facing the other way, turned around and gave us a thumbs up. We went mad. So we loved it. We then tried to get him to do it again. He just ignored us. So what we did, in the second half, being 2-0 up after Joe Linton scored, we then directed it towards Bruce. Everyone was in a good mood. We were winning. You know, pre-season, first trip for a lot of the fans that were in the away end in a long time. So I think they were just enjoying the fact that, you know, they were back in the stadiums, and they started. It was a section of the other end of the away fans, so not near us, but they started the chants. He then responded. There then was responses of "you fat so and so, you fat so and so." So they did it as a joke. They wanted to get a reaction out of him. They got a reaction, then they hit something back at him. It's now turned into an every game thing. So what they're doing now is that I think it's the same group of fans.
He's probably loving it.
Yeah, he's loving it. And the first time that he did it, and the time since, whenever he does it, he gives a right big grin. He's buzzing by it. But I think it's the same group of fans that are doing it, as you've said, as a bit of a piss take, as a bit of a joke. I don't think they mean it. I think, obviously, on social media, we don't get to see what the situation's like.
No, you're right.
I don't believe that it's genuine that they want him to give us away, because
I hope to God it's not.
I don't believe it's that. I think it's a bit of a piss take for Steve Bruce, because the couple of times I heard it, there were then negative chants thrown back at him. So I don't think it's the end of the world. To be honest with you, you know, it's not a big thing. It is only a small group of fans. It doesn't reflect the fan base, and you know what? Like, it's not really that big of an issue. The main issue for me is what happens on the pitch.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. Do you know what? Mad Mag Mark has just made a cracking point there. Well, I say a point. He said some news, and to be honest, Mark, I hope that isn't true. He said Matty Longstaff looks like he'll be heading to Aberdeen on loan this season, according to reports in the Daily Telegraph. Might learn a few things playing alongside Scott Brown. So yeah, the point I was saying, cracking point, is in Scott Brown, but I hope he doesn't go to the SPL, because for me, he needs to go to the Championship. And the SPL, I don't think he's going to learn that much if he goes there, in my opinion. I would much rather see him go to, I think you mentioned it the other week, Peter, Derby, someone like that, learning under Wayne Rooney. Ravel Morrison's there, week in, week out.
Bill Jagielka, they've got
a hard league.
Players.
Yeah.
That are playing there, and you know, Derby, they're gonna struggle this season because financially they're struggling, but they've got the experience of someone like Wayne Rooney as is his manager. Like you said, I've said Curtis Davis, Phil Jagielka, Ravel Morrison. They've got, I think they've still got Colin Kazim Richards, experienced players that are still at the club that he can learn his trade from. I think that would be a good move for him. But equally, you know, you've got the likes of Sheffield United linked with him, which would be a great move.
Yeah.
Even the likes of Huddersfield Town would also be a decent move for him to go there and guarantee football every week. But it's at Championship level. In my opinion, without being too disrespectful, there are a lot of those Scottish Premier League teams that are not Championship level.
No, they're not. They're not. That's my concern, Pete. Do you know what? As a cracking point you just made there about Huddersfield, I watched them in the cup against Everton in the midweek. Do you know what? They played great, you know.
Yeah.
They played some nice football. I was surprised.
They got a point against Sheffield United at the weekend as well, playing some decent football. They're a decent side. So he's got options there. I'd even throw Blackburn Rovers in there. They've released, talking to a lad who I work with, they released 8 players, Charlie Mulgrew, Corey Evans, like some of their experienced players they've got rid of, and they need numbers. He'd go straight into their centre midfield and probably play every week. So there are more highly reputable clubs playing at a high level that I think he could go on loan to. So I really do hope that that's not true and that he's going to Scotland. Locality-wise, I think it would be easier for him because it's probably less to travel. But you know, he needs to be playing at a high level of football. So especially if he wants to then come back and try and contest the place in our team.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. And I had a little laugh to myself before when Mike was on because my phone flashed through, and I don't know if you've seen it yet, Pete. But Nuno hasn't taken long to discover about Musa. So Watford are in talks with Tottenham over the permanent signing of Musa Sissoko.
Wow. Okay.
It's not taking them long it's not taking Nuno long to figure him out. Yeah. I mean, you know my thoughts on Sissoko anyway, mate. But they're obviously looking to ship him out, and well, maybe Watford's his only option.
And it's another, whatever we think about him, it's another player that's strengthening a team that's probably going to be in and around us at the back end of the season.
Yeah, it's a Premier League experience, isn't it? And he's, I mean, to be fair, I don't like him, and I think he's well, I've got my own opinion on him, but certainly for Watford's level, it's probably a good signing.
Watford have got a lot of pace in their team. They've got a lot of pace with Dennis Sarr.
Love Sarr.
Yeah, there's a couple of others as well that they've got real direct pace in their team. So adding that in the middle with Sissoko, because he has got a lot of pace, you know, not technically gifted, but
no, he's not.
You know, you can add to that pace, that could make them a real sort of threat going forward. But watch that space. Hopefully we can get a couple of players in. But like I said, we'll cover that tomorrow night. But we'll end it there. Pleasure as always, Chris.
Yeah, you too, mate.
Always great to chat to you, and no doubt we'll catch up and talk more in the sort of the days and weeks to come. I imagine there'll be some form of review after the Southampton game on Saturday.
I hope it's a good review, and then we've got the vant on Monday, haven't we? Yeah. Hopefully we're not vanting. I don't want to vant anymore. I want some positivity.
That's why I didn't put anything too heavy out on Twitter, because I'm just sick of being like negative or down. It just, you know, Bruce needs to leave. We all know that. So I'm not telling people anything that they don't already know. But I just want to be happy. I want to be happy on Saturday.
Just want to be happy.
Yeah, I just want to be happy. I just want to look at the badge. I just want to look at the badge and just go, I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm made up.
I'm not asking a lot, am I?
No, not at all. Not at all.
But always a pleasure, Chris. Thank you again to Mike as well for Matchday Vlogs, Southampton fan, and Keith Toll, who I think will be joining us a little bit more often on the away days. You know, with his stats from various teams, he knows his stuff.
Do you know what, Pete? Next time you'll have to make sure you get his little video intro ready. That's like the best thing in the world. I love that. I was hoping you were going to play it tonight, but
I didn't pull it over in time. But I will.
Oh, mate, I just love that. I think it's great. I know. I'd love to see the away fans' reaction to it.
Well, we got Man U next, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
But always a pleasure, Chris. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Really, really appreciated it. Big shout out to Bruce at Central. You are absolutely right.
Bruce
He's
in.
reminded us.
I know, Yano.
In.
I love
Bruce is in.
Bruce in.
I would love to have the Central Ale available. There it is in the corner. Central Ale. Bruce in. So get yourself down to Bruce at Central Ale for you. All the best ales up in Newcastle. I still want to try that jam donut. Can't wait to go up there and try that jam donut.
Oh, the jam donut ale.
Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah.
Definitely going to purchase some of that. Get involved if you're up in and around Newcastle. And yeah, we'll keep plugging away. But as always, thanks, Chris, Mike, and Keith. And as always, we do love playing away.